the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
The other day, one of the inmates at the jail asked me, what is like your faith, your church? I said, our Orthodox Church or our Orthodox Christian faith does not promise a bed full of honey and milk, but struggles too. Unlike other Christian denominations where you sit down, praise God, read the Bible, and you think you're saved. No. In our church, we learn the tools how to fight the evil of this world and how to struggle. Then I said also, my dear brother, we have to struggle because Christ, through his own path on the cross or to the cross, showed us the way, and we also must be ready for the same in our lives. This is not a high theology. It is pretty simple. Without Golgotha, there is no resurrection. We must trust God not 99%, but 100%. This is what we learned. This is what we heard in the gospel today. Trusting God psychosomatically with the body and the soul. Today, I like to point out 3 things to you all. 2 from the Gospels reading, trusting God and serving 2 masters. Then from the epistles reading, the love of God for us. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. Whether we like it or not, our senses can lead us down or up the hill. Everything, literally everything, enters into the body and soul through our senses, the 5 senses. If the eye is not in the right place, it can distract the mind very quickly and lead to sin. How this can happen? What our eye sees takes it into the mind, and the mind transmits its appetite and desire to the heart, and the sin is committed. The reality is we grow old with our senses and we die with them. What we should be doing is guarding the senses and preventing them from pollution. Think of the story with Narcissus. He saw himself in the clear water of the spring, fell in love with himself, becoming both lover and beloved in himself. He was deceived by his eyes and became idolizing himself to the point where he fell into the water and died. This is the first step to our spiritual death and how we become idolizing ourselves. I see my friend has a better car than me, and I have to have a better one. I see my coworker in the restaurant makes more money on tips, and next time I need to get his section so I can get more money too. Why do I have to be like this? This is why Christ was telling people to guard the eye. After all, there's nothing new under the sun except the incarnation. Keeping the mind pure is fundamental for our Christian faith. Our senses, our eye, is directly connected with the mind. The mind is one of the central points in knowing the human being and where the passions enter. The body is ruled by the mind, and it is inclined to what is pleasurable. St. Gregory of Nyssa writes that in human nature, pleasure has a dual character. In the soul, it is activated by this passion, and in the body by passion. And it comes from the eye as the lamp of the body. To keep our bodies bright, the mind must be above the senses and not become a co-prisoner and victim. What is natural to the mind? The tendency to strive for its creator. The natural pleasure that should be focused on the abundance of the spiritual reality. Pleasure and suffering are interconnected for obvious and logical reasons. After pleasure that is contrary to the soul, the consequences are the pain or the suffering that man is going to face. I discovered a good analogy, or rather a historical pagan feast that used to be celebrated in honor of joy and sorrow. St. Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain writes about it. In the history of the Romans, they worshipped two deities, joy and sorrow, at one and at the same time. Even though they had dedicated a separate temple, they used to offer sacrifice simultaneously to both. This way, they indicated enigmatically how very close joy and sorrow are united, just as pleasure and suffering are. When one deity gives joy, the other creates fear, and when one harms and grieves us, the other gives hope. I brought up this example in relation to how our eyes can darken the body. Yes, there will be temporal taste of material pleasure, but the sorrow or the consequences come too, and it's not fun. Thus, we must guard our senses and keep our bodies pure. The lamp of the body is the eye. Means also that we see as we are. In other words, we tend to see and hear things not as they are, but as we are. Take two people, show them a beautiful green forest and ask them, what do you see? One might say, I see nothing but boring hills and trees. The other one might say, I see how beautiful these trees are and all the nature that God created. So you see, humans tend to perceive based on their desires and passions. There's a story about a king in an ancient kingdom who chose a good man and a bad man from among his people. To the good man he said, go out into the kingdom and find an evil man. The good man searched and searched, but he could find no evil man. To the bad man, the king said, go out into the kingdom and find a good man. The bad man too searched and searched, but he could find no good man. So we see as we are. Let us see the goodness, the purity, to search for what is profitable for the soul. The Pharisee and the priest saw Christ with their own eyes and yet rejected and crucified him. At the same time, the simple fisherman saw that he was God. We all see different things based on our spiritual state. When we listen to homilies like this one today, after liturgy, one might come to me and say, hey, you had several mistakes in your homily. One side. Another one might say, today I found God. Both sides find what they were prepared to find. Again, we see as we are. Christ also talked about serving two masters. It is impossible, but we think we can do it. It is true that we live in a time full of uncertainties. At moments, it can be scary, and that's okay. We are humans, and we have the right to worry and to have fear, but there has to be a limit. Once it passes our hope and faith, then it becomes a real problem in our lives. That is when we attempt to serve two masters. One day, we go to the one who promises us material stability. Another day, we go to the one who gives us a peace. Our psychosomatic well-being must be fully dependent on no one but God Himself, and only God. Yes, life can be hard, but it's supposed to be. We have to have one main pillar that we hold to it until we die, the pillar of our faith, our sweet Lord. Everything else is secondary and can be overcome. When we're put on the spot, it can be scary. I'll give you a personal example. My wife and I are on visa in this country. Before our wedding, she had to leave, stay in Germany for 4 months, and then come back 2 months before the wedding. She could only stay here in the country for 3 months, back and forth, and leave. So while we're waiting for the approval, she had to go back and forth several times. What was scary, we already had the wedding planned with 300 people invited. I was scared that if they're going to let her in the country or not. I was. The fear of if they would let her in was living in me every single day. But I could not allow that to overcome my worries, and I asked God to take care of it. It was the same thing before she gave birth to our son. It was questionable if she could come back and give birth here. Otherwise, our boy would have been born without the presence of his father. These things are scary when someone goes through, but we have to pick our side. What I learned in those situations was to fully rely on God, and I accepted His will. Knowing that He's fully in charge of these things made me realize that I cannot take everything on my shoulders. Then I said to God, you know everything. You brought my life, you brought my wife and me together from 5,500 miles away, and now you do as you wish. Hold to Christ and everything else will be okay. It will be. If you're wealthy, good for you. Just don't let the material take you away. When we die, all we can take with us is our deeds. If you have it, give it away. If you don't, then give your heart. It is wonderful that we have to give to churches, as we should, but we also have to give to individuals who need our help. One thing I can say for sure is the more you give, the more it will be given to you. I'm not referring only to money. We receive things back in our faith through spiritual experiences and our health. So let us serve one Master, our sweet Lord, who desires our salvation. And last, in today's epistle's reading, St. Paul talks about the love of God. One may ask, how can I experience the love of God and pass it to others? To reach such a level of love, we first need to understand the Paschal mystery. What is the Paschal mystery? In marriage, with friends, our neighbors, and in all aspects of life, the Paschal mystery has to do with dying to myself, putting my will, my desire, and my ego to death, so that Christ and His image, my wife, my children, my friends, my neighbors, can live in me. The Paschal mystery is the ultimate expression of God's love and mercy to humanity. It provides the means for humanity's salvation and reconciliation with God. The mystery begins with Christ's incarnation, when God the Son became human and entered into the world. And it reaches the climax of Christ's death, which was a voluntarily sacrifice for the sin of humanity. The Paschal mystery provides a theological framework for understanding the meaning and purpose of man's care for others. For example, in marriage, by embracing self-sacrificial love, husband and wives can experience the fullness of their relationship and become living witness to God's love in the world. Our care for others, where you come first before me, everything leads to the Paschal mystery. It is the focal point of our whole belief system. It is about giving one's life for others as Christ did. The Paschal mystery is a center of Orthodox theology. This is the self-sacrificial love of God that was shown to us, and we must emulate the same one. Such is our faith. You are important to me. You come first because Christ did the same. He placed us first before Him. Elder Sophrony says that our faith is not simply an inner matter. It always reflects the times we live as Christians. Very powerful statement. In conclusion, I talked about the lamp of the body is the eye. That is also to say, we see as we are. We must guard our senses and protect our minds from what can kill the soul. What is inside is important. If we do not have God on the inside, we shall never see Him on the outside. The eye is the window of the whole body. When serving to two masters, then serving to two masters can be a dangerous thing to do. Lay out a foundation in God, and everything else will pass away. And the Paschal mystery, which is essential of Orthodox theology, self-sacrificial love for others. Only then we can love unconditionally. Everything in the church, first of all for the clergy and then lay leaders, must be convinced, everyone must be convinced that everything in the church begins and ends with Jesus Christ. This may seem all to you obvious, but it must be emphasized since it is too easy to forget and so often betrayed. Let us be angelic in appearance and furthermore angelic in mind, and may we all find the paradise. Amen.
Amen.